Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, I've talked before, I've told you about my friends and their quest for muskie fishing on our tributaries and what it means to them and their methods of doing this. But now I can tell you about a trip that I made. I made it just yesterday, and it was an amazing trip. And I went with my buddy Alex, who kind of serves as a guide for us if I have people from other areas that want to go out and try to catch a muskie. Because I know Alex will do everything in his power not only to give them a happy, fun trip, but also if they do catch any muskies, to make sure those muskies can return alive to the water. So anyway, I went with Alex, and I got to tell you, it was amazing to me. I talked to Alex before, and he said, yeah, we're catching muskies. We're using spinners, he said, spinner baits. Now, this has never been one of my favorite baits for muskies, but the advantage of a spinner bait is it does have an uncovered hook that allows you to hook the fish maybe easier than some of the other baits that we've told you that work so well. But I got to tell you, the muskie fishing on our tributaries is everything that I've said and more. We used two boats, and I was in the back boat because we were taking a young boy that had never got a chance to fish muskies before, and that was my goal, for him to get a muskie out the other end of the line. And so it didn't matter to me if I even got a strike, and I ended up catching, of all things, 4 muskies yesterday on a spinnerbait, a white spinnerbait. Now, anybody can throw a spinnerbait and reel it in. This is not some magic technique that people have to master before they can catch a fish. We do have some wonderful muskie fishing in our tributaries. And like on other reports, I have to be careful of giving away every single specific spot, because if a whole bunch of people went to that spot, it wouldn't take long before the fish sort of disappear. And anyway, it was one of our major tributaries, and it was water that I'd never really drifted down before, and it was amazing me. The water, the water was not deep. These muskies were in shallow water, and oh my gosh, one of the things that they provide, and I could see this being in the second boat, and I watched Parker as he was casting, and when he would hook a muskie, the very experience that you do have once you hook one is extraordinary. You could see from maybe 50 yards back, I could see that fish just almost like torpedoing itself out of the water in some of those violent attacks that the fish was making and trying to get the hook out of its mouth. The one thing you might not realize about muskies is I don't think they have a lot of stamina. They seem to tire somewhat quickly. They give off so much lactic acid in their battle that they're fighting for their life, and the only way they know how. But some of the angling battles that you have with them are so unique and so special. You wouldn't think of a fish that's we'll say 40 inches long or bigger being able to just jettison itself out of the water on the top, almost like a torpedo. And you can see that, you can hear the drag screaming in the reels. You know, one of the mistakes that Parker and his father made when they arrived at the stream in the morning is they had researched muskie fishing and said that, well, you need rods this big and this heavy, and the rods that they brought to use were way too big for the type of fishing that we do in these tributaries. You don't need big, heavy tackle. It's actually a detriment to have that. It works against you. The line is so thick on those rods, and you don't need that. And one of the things that I will say is that it's important not to use too big a bait. If you're using too big a bait, then you do need those big rods, but you don't need to do that. I don't think it's as much fun as being able to use light bass tackle and use light bass lures like you'd use if you were going out smallmouth fishing. The spinnerbait that I used was not too big a one, and I find that if I use too big a baits, you don't get as many strikes. Maybe you get that big monster that's just waiting for something big to come along, but you don't get the action that I think is part of. I know that day yesterday, Parker will remember the rest of his life, for a 10-year-old to be able to go out And we ended the day because Parker had a game later. We had to get back for his baseball game. But anyway, it's that old story, just, the last cast. Well, the last pool that Alex wanted to try before we headed back upriver, I heard Alex shout. He shouted, "Muskie, Muskie," for us to hear, for his father to be able to get down there in time to get pictures of him fighting this fish. And the other thing, Alex kept yelling, "It's a real big one, it's a big one." And I could see the fish catapulting out of the water as Parker was standing there trying to reel in. It's really something that, only happens a couple times maybe in a lifetime. This is something he will remember. And so we ended the day with Parker holding up his fish. Parker had taken his shirt off, as Alex had. The two of them were like twins in that boat. And Alex handed him the muskie. He says, "Here, Parker, you hold it up for the pictures." And so Parker's holding that viciously toothed muskie up with one hand under the belly and one hand kind of under the chin, holding it there laterally so we could get videos of this. And then the muskie was put back in the water. And you see Parker's hand bleeding, and Alex's was too, because they were handling that fish. And so then they both thought they were blood brothers. They were slapping hands together with the blood going down their fingers. The teeth on the muskies are so sharp that you have to be so careful when you handle them. You don't have to put your hand in their mouth to get bit. They aren't trying to bite you, but their teeth are razor sharp, and if your hands even get near those teeth, they're going to lacerate your skin. So anyway, it was a day to remember for the rest of my life too. Even though I wasn't out there trying to catch fish, I did catch some in the back boat in water they'd just gone over by casting this spinnerbait. And I noticed that the two times I cast it almost up on the bank, I said to Alex, "Alex, that fish hit before it hit the water. I swear it was laying there with its mouth wide open, waiting for it to come down inside. I could feel it and see it just as the lure hit the water." And it's fishing like you can't imagine until you do it. The experience is extraordinary. It's exciting. It's unique. And the backdrop is these sparkling small streams that we have that hold these really big fish. It really is a angling experience of a lifetime. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.